October has always been one of my favorite months of the year. Things start to feel more cozy and life slows down a little bit before the rush of the holidays. It's one of those months I'm able to relax a lot more than others. There's not much to think about when it comes to the garden, and I'm able to spend more time doing other things I haven't had time to do in months. Also, simply just take time for much needed rest. It's always hard for me to get out of the mindset of keeping busy around this time of year, especially after the craziness of summer. I always feel a little bit lazy in a sense, but taking the mental load off is needed, and I've started to look at the seasons a lot differently as I've gotten older. Don't get me wrong, I always get sad to see the garden go, but I know it's temporary, and before I know it, it will be thriving again. Rest is a necessary part of nature, yet it's something in our culture we don't do often enough. With some of my extra time, I started to play around a little bit more in the kitchen. To be honest, I started to feel a little bit of burnout toward the end of summer with all the preserving and keeping up with everyday life in the kitchen. But today I was really feeling excited to play with something new. I harvested some carrots from my garden to make a carrot cake, which is something I've never attempted before, but I must say I was pretty impressed with how it turned out. Okay, here is my freeze dryer. I have just the plain Jane Everyday 4 shelf in there. They came out with a new Pro line and it has 5 shelves to it. So I actually can have 5 trays running at a time instead of 4, which is great. It gives me a lot more capacity in my unit for each cycle. So every time I do anything with the freeze dryer, I'm like, oh my gosh, is it going to be easy? Is it going to be hard? Everything ends up being easy. I was really worried this was going to be a pretty complex thing, and so far it's been really easy each time. So I have pulled this out a few times just to clean everything inside. So I'm just gonna pull it out and unclip it. I do have everything completely unplugged, just as precaution. I harvested some paprikas the other day and I'm gonna get those into the freeze dryer, but I'm just gonna go through and see if I missed any, because there are a few paprikas it looks like I missed. I think I wanna go ahead and pull some of these pepper plants pretty soon and get this area amended and kind of relax for a few weeks before I plant garlic. Here you go. I'll be planting my garlic here in about 2 or 3 weeks. I'm doing it a little bit later this year. We still have not got frost. We are now past our frost date. I typically like to wait until we get a little bit cooler, but let me just tell you how beautiful this seed garlic is. So I will be planting some of my own. Last year I planted all of my own seed garlic, and all of my varieties got really mixed up. Last year was the first year I didn't order seed garlic. So I really wanted to establish this year my varieties again, because I did a terrible job of that. So I will be planting some of my own, but I ordered a bunch this year so I could establish varieties again. So first up, I have a pound of Italian purple here. I have all hard neck, and then I also have 1 soft neck variety. So this is the Italian purple. These are a little bit more white. You can see there's like a purple striping to them. Really pretty. With the soft neck, it's going to be my first year doing soft neck. I've always grown hard neck because that's what's typically suggested. But I did go on our extension office to see if there was any soft necks that they suggested to grow in this area. I believe I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Ischium red, I believe. Yeah, it's a soft neck variety. And look how beautiful. Like, these things are massive. So I really wanted to try a soft neck variety this year because the storage on a soft neck is a lot longer than a hard neck. A soft neck will typically get you about 8 to 12 months of storage time, when a hard neck will get you about 6 to 8 months of storage time. I really love the flavor of hard neck. They're really good for roasting, but they don't store as long. So this is a favorite of mine. We got the Chestnut Red up next. This is a variety I've planted every single year now, and look how beautiful the coloring on this skin is. It's very purpley, but it's very solid in that color. This garlic is phenomenal, and if you only get one variety to try, I definitely suggest growing chestnut. It's always done really well for me, and the flavor is so good. Another one that's done really well for me is this Northern White. It's just, again, a beautiful head of garlic. So I'm really excited about this. These are just going to be sitting in their little paper bags in my basement, waiting to be planted. One thing I like to do around this time of year is start making batches of elderberry syrup to keep into the fridge, and then I start to take that daily just to help with immunity at this time of year. So I have some dried elderberries here, some honey, some water. I'm gonna mix half a cup of dried berries, 2 cups of water, and allow that to kind of boil and simmer for just like 30 to 40 minutes. And then I'm gonna strain everything out, add the honey, and then that will be our elderberry syrup. In past years, I have done elderberry syrup with some spices and stuff, but honestly, that was not my favorite tasting elderberry syrup. I definitely prefer it without all the extra spices. I just like to take straight elderberry syrup. So that's what I'm going to be making today. Whenever I don't have my measuring cup handy, I just grab a mason jar because they have all of the measurings on the side. I honestly probably use mason jars way too often when it comes to measuring stuff. Add about half a cup of berries. One thing I can't wait for is I actually have 2 elderberry plants now planted in my garden space. So I'm really hoping that I will get some elderberries from them next year. Okay, so that has been cooling for a little bit, and now I'm just going to add half a cup of honey to this and mix it up really, really well. All right, now I'm just going to pour it into a pint-sized mason jar here. And one thing I love is I have these lids for mason jars that have a handle on one side, and they just have the pop-off top. That way you can just pour it really easily. And I'm just going to stick this in the fridge, and we will use it up in a few weeks. Looks like this little cantaloupe started to crack, so I'm gonna go give this to the chickens. But one thing I did differently with the loofahs this year, which I feel like it's really working in my favor, is I started to really cut back water about 3 weeks ago, and like in anticipation that we'd be getting frost, and I'd want everything to start drying out. And I'm getting so many more loofahs dried out on the vine this year than I did last year. Last year, I think I had like 40, maybe 50 that were green at the end of the year, and it was such a pain. Yeah, so whatever I get dried, cool. I will probably have a handful that are green that I might process, but we'll see. Yeah, that was not good, but they'll enjoy it. So last night I decided that I was gonna go ahead and pull all of my pepper plants. This is the area I'll be planting garlic, and I wanna go ahead and get this soil all topped off. I need to figure out the pH of it, see if I need to lower it or whatnot, and I kind of just want to get this bed prepped so on garlic planting day everything will be good to go. Honestly, I'm not really getting that many more peppers at this point anyway. I've preserved quite a bit, but yeah, I'm gonna clear all of this out today, even though frost has not come. I think this might be a first for me, but this is typically around the time of year I do start cleaning stuff out, and I do prefer to have a bed prepped on a planting day because garlic planting can take some time, and I'd rather just come out and start planting instead of having to worry about cleaning out a bed. And this garden is to the point where I would rather clean it up in steps anyway, and I'm gonna go ahead and knock this one out today. I also have like my tomato arch over here too, so I'm just actually cleaning out the entire of the 4 beds in the front today. It will make me a little sad, but honestly, I am ready for a change of season. A little bit of a break. I'm already starting to plan for next year, and I'm someone that has to really have one thing behind me before I can really start thinking about the next. I always am kind of thinking ahead because that's what you have to do with gardening, but I do like to have one thing finished before I kind of move on. Oh man, it looks like I missed a few like really good looking paprikas the other day. So I actually probably will do another round of drying. I'll probably just try to see how many cayennes and jalapenos I can get, and then just powder all of this up for my spice cabinet. To be honest, garden cleanup time for me is one of those times that I don't like as much. You can just see your year's work of gardening come to a close within a few minutes, and I find that always so sad. But I've definitely got a system over the years, and it's definitely not as much work, but a day like this is still a lot of work when you're pulling plants, trying to compost things, bag things up, and all of that. So one thing that I've learned over the years is whether you're composting or bagging up your garden, it's really good idea to break it up as much as possible. That way you can either fit as much into a bag as you possibly can, or that way your compost is already starting to be broken down. So what I'm going to be doing with all of my pepper plants is actually composting them. So I won't compost any plants in my garden that get any type of disease, just because I don't have a huge amount of space to compost either. So whatever does get composted out of my garden, I make sure it is disease free. So if you don't compost, composting this time of year is like the perfect time to get started, because you want equal parts of browns and greens. You want them to mix up, and it just makes for a lot easier of a composting process. And even if you don't have a lot of dead material on hand currently, you're about to have a bunch from all of the tree droppage and the leaves. So you will see here, I am actually just taking layers to kind of help this process. I am just putting a little bit layer of pepper, and then I'm putting a layer of, this is literally a combination of just dead leaves, dead plants. I just had it all over here waiting for this time of year, and I'm just layering it on, and I'm also watering between. So when it comes to compost, you really want to make sure that your pile stays as moist as possible, because the more life that is living in that compost, the easier it is to break down. So that is the whole process I am doing there, and I'm just kind of getting the old mulch, putting the old mulch over here as well, and again, just making a big layered compost pile for the end of the year. But then I went ahead and moved over to my tomato area, and this is an area that got really diseased, so I will actually not be composting this. I typically always bag up my tomatoes. Tomatoes are that one thing that always gets diseased, and I'd rather not have that in my garden. So by chopping it up as little as I possibly can before bagging it up, this actually allows me to get all of this into one solid bag, and I'm not having a bunch of bag waste either. But just getting the whole area cleaned up, and then I go through and I get my oyas taken out. Then all I'm doing is scraping up the rest of the material that's around, that's kind of left over. I'm weeding. There was a bunch of Bermuda grass around that I went ahead and got weeded out. And I also go ahead and kind of aerate the soil a bit, but that is where I kind of end things for today. I actually need to go get some distilled water before I can do any pH testing on this, and I also need to run to my garden center. I don't have enough compost on hand from topping all of my other beds throughout the year, where I do need to get a few bags of a nice compost to layer on top of this before I plant the garlic. But I will make sure I keep this area really well watered, especially since I don't have any mulch on top of it. I don't want this soil to dry out. So I really didn't have that many peppers left on the plants. I did have a little bit more cayennes, but I'm not really liking the cayenne variety I went with this year. So I will be doing like a review video here in a few weeks talking about like things that went really well, things that didn't go as well, varieties I grew, and things I will be changing for next year. So I will be doing that. I just actually felt a raindrop. I haven't looked at the radar. I should check though, because it did get really sunny and it got hot and then it really cooled down. So I put my jacket on, but got these peppers. I got some distilled water last night. I am now just digging about 6 inches deep to get a soil sample, and then I'm going to see kind of where this pH is sitting in this soil. Like I said, the beginning of the year, it was high and I had to lower it a little bit. I brought a lid so I could just shake it really well. Oh, of course I bring a lid that has like a hole in it. So yeah, this is definitely not leak proof. So I need to let this sit for 30 minutes once it's done. So you can see we are definitely reading pretty neutral. On the scale of things. This is where a 7 is, and that is neutral. So that looks pretty dang close to me, which is really good to see considering I fixed this at the beginning of the season. Tomorrow, my best friend and I are doing one of those awkward best friend JCPenney photo shoots, and we really wanted to try to find like an old school sweater, and then I ended up kind of going down a rabbit hole of old school sweaters, and I found this one. And I just felt like you guys would appreciate this just as much as I did. Look at this sweater vest. We got flowers, tomatoes, carrots, beets, eggplant, a ladybug, peas, and look at the buttons. The buttons are carrots. The back is just plaid and everything, but I thought this would be really funny with the turtleneck. And then hers is cow themed. She loves cow print right now, so I love that. Like, our sweaters represent our current loves in life at the moment, but how stinking fun is this thing? And it was only $20, which go thrifting on eBay. It's pretty awesome. I love it. It has really fun stitching outside of each one of the photos. I love the carrot buttons. When I was putting it on, I noticed that there was still an extra inside the sweater, which I love, but it fits really good. I'm really excited about it. I don't know if I'm gonna wear these jeans or not. I'm gonna have to play around with that a little bit and how I'm going to style my hair, but I think this is going to be so much fun and so ridiculous. I honestly can't wait. This really makes me want to have just a ridiculous sweater collection for like different holidays or things like this where it's just screams your personality on a sweater. One thing I might do at the end of the video is maybe post a few of the photos or like footage I get of it. Good job. So as I'm closing up this week's video, I actually looked at our 10-day forecast this morning, and we have our official first frost on the forecast, which is the 30th of October, which is still like 10 days away. It's at the very end of our 10-day forecast. So we'll see if it actually comes. I expect it to come. I really feel like this is the latest out of the 6 years I've gardened, because the 30th of October is actually my birthday. So I feel like I would remember if it was any later than that. This year was pretty late. I was actually wondering if we were going to get all the way through October without a frost, which would have been crazy. I'm sure it's happened before, but definitely not in the years that I've gardened. But I will be planting garlic probably in about a week and a half at this point. And yeah, everything's really slowing down. I'm really looking forward to the slowdown this year. This is something that I'm always hesitant around this time of year, but this year I really feel ready for a slowdown. I'm ready to like spend more time in the kitchen making cozy meals and not preserving, and kind of just relaxing, crocheting, spending more time being creative in other areas. One reason why I love gardening so much is you get the seasons and you really have to go hard for a while. And once you go hard for a while, you do reach a small little bit of burnout that makes you really ready to move on to something else for a while. And it gives me that opportunity to have ebbs and flows throughout the seasons of my life and be able to grab onto other creative parts of my life during other parts of the year. So it never really gets boring, but it was always really hard for me in the beginning. It still is kind of hard to see the garden go, like clearing that fourth of the garden this week. Like honestly, it looks so bare, and I know this whole area is going to be gone probably within, I would guess, a week and a half at the very latest. Most of it, at least the broccoli and stuff, will still be in here, but it is one of those things where everything just goes away. It's your years of hard work just being ripped out within seconds or taken away within seconds with the frost. And that's really hard in the beginning. So give yourself some grace on that, because when you work hard with something for majority of the year, to see it gone like that is really difficult, but it does get easier through the years. I'm really looking forward to this slowdown, like I just said, and just, yeah, I want to do some other things and relax. I always forget how much work it is to do garden cleanup though. Like my trellis tunnel, this will be fun to completely rip down. The trellises are always really fun to rip down, even though I love the trellises, and they add a lot of extra privacy to my space. But either way, guys, I just wanted to say this is probably like the last week before we get frost. It's definitely officially fall around here, but thank you guys so much for joining me this week. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye.